to Bitcoin Podcast. The only one that's making your money is you. Listen to the Bitcoin Podcast. So hold on and listen to the Bitcoin Podcast.
Watching and listening to another episode of the Bitcoin Podcast. So this is another interview on the Bitcoin Podcast. So I don't know if you guys remember, we stopped doing the show probably 18 months, 2 years ago. But there used to be a show on our network called On Ramping with Dee, right? And I had this interesting concept for a show where I was thinking to myself, what would it be like if I were like sitting on my front porch and I see a car go by in the years like 1905, 1910, and I see a car go by my front porch. And I'm like, holy shit, that's that automobile thingy-mobile that people have been talking about for like months. It's the first time I'm seeing one. That's a piece of crap, but at least I saw one. And I wanted to put myself kind of like in the mind of that person and find that persona, and interview that person to see what they have heard about crypto, what they do know about crypto, and answer any questions that they might, because I happen to be that enthusiast that was way into the automobile before it started cruising in front of people's porches. And I kind of wanted to see if I could help, provide any clarity or just give an honest assessment for someone who's not as deep into this stuff as maybe Jessie or myself. And so this is kind of an on-ramping. So I wanted to welcome Kevin and Henry to the show. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good to be here. Looking forward to it.
So how about some small introductions? Just like name, where you're from, what do you do?
Kev, you want to go?
Yeah, I'm Kevin. I live in Louisville, Kentucky, and I run a marketing agency.
And my name is Henry Baroa. I also live in Louisville, Kentucky, originally from New York City. And I own a few companies. One is a natural stone and engineered quartz manufacturing facility.
Lovely, lovely. So I guess my first question to you guys is, I know yours is Henry, but how did you guys first hear about cryptocurrency?
For me, it was a few years back, probably when the Winklevoss twins were really getting into it, but I didn't pay a lot of mind to it back then because I didn't have their kind of money. So it felt like an abstract concept to me then. Earlier this year, we launched an augmented reality startup, and that kind of ties into the metaverse. And as those two worlds started intertwining, I realized, oh, wow, there's a lot of intersection between AR and blockchain. Is way more than just Bitcoin. Like, there are actual functional blockchains out there that serve a purpose. And to me, that was like kind of accelerant for my mind once I realized the functionality and the use cases around some of them that I use as a launch pad.
Nice. How about you, Henry?
Well, for me, when I met Dee and we started working together, Dee and Jeff, my business partner, they were always talking about cryptocurrency, and I was just too busy to listen. I heard what they were talking about, but I felt like I didn't have the time to learn anything else at the moment. Like, my mind was already full. So they were constantly telling me, I think this was in probably November. No, it was like September of 2019. And they were always talking about it, talking about cryptocurrency, talking about Bitcoin. I just didn't have the space for it. And, Jeff was constantly telling me, look, you need to put some money in this. You need to put some money in this. And one day he showed me his portfolio, and I was like, holy shit, like, I need to put some money in this. So I jumped in, and, that's it. That's how it was.
It's very funny because that's how like 90% of the stories are. People are like, oh yeah, I don't have time for this. And then like 8, 10, 12 months later, they're like, I might make just a little bit of time.
Right.
Just like 10 minutes.
True story. And that's exactly what happened. So,
I mean, my story is no different. And so one thing that I do see is interesting is, Kevin, you've actually seen, so outside of Bitcoin, you said there were some other blockchains that had functionality that you were interested in. What are those? And hopefully Jesse is not going to shoot them down in the dust, because Jesse will do that.
That's fine, because just understand, I'm kind of a novice and a noob around the space. So one that I always hear, Cardano, the ADA is the call for it. That one I hear really good things about functionality wise. And VeChain is another one that I've heard decent things about too, in terms of like blockchain as a service and the way that they're utilizing it for tracking shipping and things of that nature. Those would be the two primary ones that have stuck out to me over the past few months as I've looked into things. Jesse, are those terrible ones?
That's interesting. I guess I don't know too much, to be quite honest. I don't know too much about VeChain and Cardano. I just know that Cardano is supposed to have smart contracts, but I don't think they have smart contract functionality. And so that's something that Ethereum, that's the reason why it's number 2 right now. And that's the reason why, Binance Smart Chain is essentially like, I think number 6 or number 5, is because they basically cloned Ethereum and are running it on their centralized servers for the most part. And so you have like, back in 2017, you had like Chinese copycats of Ethereum, like Neo. And you had like this whole, let's see if we can copy Ethereum and kind of steal value by doing the same thing. And right now you kind of have Ethereum having trouble with gas fees in terms of being able to run those complex smart contract functions. And you have these kind of next gen chains, like for instance, Avalanche is an example. There's Algorand, there's Polkadot, there's basically a lot of different iterations of something that could be an alternative to Ethereum now. Now, VeChain and Cardano, I think Cardano is supposed to be an alternative, but in terms of where they are for smart contracts, I don't think that they have them yet. And that's something that you may want to look into. And then VeChain, I had heard that it's for tracking assets, but I mean, technically you can do that as soon as you have smart contracts. And I would look into any chain with like currently with smart contracts that also has the kind of throughput that you're looking for in terms of whatever industry you think they're trying to bring their services to. So for example, if you're talking about derivative services, you probably want to have something where transactional throughput is fairly high. If you're talking about Bitcoin, right, the transactional throughput is fairly slow for something like that. But yeah, I think if you look around, I think if you read the white papers, that's something that a lot of people did years and years ago. And even Dee and I, we had a show on the network where we actually broke down the Bitcoin white paper and then the Ethereum white paper, and kind of we also got into a little bit of Solidity programming for Ethereum. So it kind of gave us a little bit more insight into.
You better
how
put some strong quotations on that, Jesse. Into was me yelling in the microphone that shit was so hard to understand.
He was like, this doesn't make sense. Why don't they use this word instead of this word? But yeah,
I was like, I got really upset because I was like, I don't understand why programmers don't read left to right like the rest of the world, except for like a little bit. Why does everything go right to left? So anyways, I want to reel things back because Jesse, you went straight into Cadillac language. We hadn't even hit Model T yet, right? So like smart contract, like what is that? So Bitcoin has a very simple design. It's designed to prove that I sent money to someone. That's it, right? The smart contract changes the game, and why people are so hype about Ethereum is because it adds a little twist to it. It says I sent money or something, an asset to someone if a certain set of conditions are made, right? And that now changes the game, right? It's easy to have a bank say like, oh, Henry sent money to Kevin. Here it is on the ledger. We see it. Cool. Let's verify it. Right. But then adding that other condition, you usually have to have other third parties and other entities involved, like escrow services or, you know, what's the name of the guys that witness you sign something? Notaries. Like you have to have other services to set these conditions in order to, validate these conditions. Well, with the Ethereum blockchain, when you have a smart contract, they call it, it's just a programmed way to transfer this value or transfer these assets or whatever it is that's programmed into them. Right. And so when Jesse was like, it doesn't have smart contract functionality. Well, Cardano says it will, but it doesn't. And that's the game they keep playing with everyone. And it seems to be working great because their price is just doing great things. But I can't really understand why. Which, in the hype of a bull market, which you all are in, you're going to ask yourself a lot of questions like, why is Doge popular? Like, what the hell? That's just a bull market. But I got a question for you guys. I know, Henry, that you have, you're invested. Kevin, are you invested in crypto? Any crypto? None at all.
I used a little bit of money last year and lost it because I didn't hold anything. I spent my money kind of gaining knowledge around it. So whatever I used, if I had $10 in something, even at a small amount, well, now I got a reason to read that white paper that Jesse had mentioned and things like that. So I use it as a way to force my hand into learning stuff more than a vehicle to try to make any money.
That's good, actually. I mean, if you use it, you kind of learn and see how it works. And I guess what I was getting at with that question is, how does it have felt to have your first significant drop in portfolio value? Harry, I see you rubbing your forehead.
It's crazy because I was in Atlanta for the last 2 weeks, and Kevin calls me. We start talking, and we're catching up. Kevin and I were really good friends. We met back in like 2011, 2012. We were in the same math class. We were going to college together, whatever. And it's funny. Our first conversation was a huge argument right in the middle of class. True story. But we that's a whole nother situation. But anyway, we were talking, and Kev goes, "Yo, man, so what are you into nowadays?" And I'm like, "Man, I'm into crypto. Like, I'm putting all my money in crypto. Like, I have financing and finances." And at that time, like, Ethereum was up. Like, it was like at 4,100 or something like that, 4,200, and Bitcoin was hitting 60 G's. And I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, I'm rich, right? It was fantastic. So that's when I told him, I was like, yo, man, I'm going on this, I was invited on a podcast, and, everything is fantastic. Life is great. I might not even go back home type shit. And like the next day, the shit dropped. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, what the hell is going on? So I'm calling Jeff. I'm like, yo, Jeff, you see this? And he's like, man, I've been looking at it all night. And it was tough. I mean, there were drops before, right? There were drops before, but nothing significant like this. And it wasn't even that we lost money. We didn't lose our initial investment. But all the gains just kind of just dissipated. They just went away. And it was nuts. My cousin, Joe, she gave me a little bit of funds, and she was like, look, I want you to put this away for me. So I was like, all right, cool. So it was so crazy. This is a true story. It was crazy. While I was in Atlanta, I called her, and she more than like doubled her funds, like more than double. So I go, yo, cuz, this thing is high. Like, I don't know what to do. Like, when do we get out? She was like, now. We get out now. And I'm like, nah, we're not getting out. And she was like, yeah, we get out now. Like, pull it. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to pull it. And by the next morning, it was gone. And I was like, how the hell am I going to tell my cousin that all her gains are now gone? So It was nuts, man. It was nuts. It was to answer your question, it was a roller coaster of emotions. The market is going up now, right? It's coming back. So it kind of eases, the anxiety. But at the end of the day, what kind of kept me sane at the moment was, one, the conversations that Jeff and I were having back and forth, and just understanding what's going on, right? So the issues remain, right? The issues remain. The fundamentals remain the same, and the solution is still cryptocurrency, right? So, as I understand it, with my limited knowledge, right, the issue is the Fed, the Treasury, the government, just this massive amount of printing money, and just the way that the world, so with all this money being printed, just the value of funds going down, or the value of the dollar going down, and then at the same time us moving into a digital age, right? So all those things remain true, right? None of that has changed. So we see the market continue to go up, and then other things that you hear just watching videos and that sort of thing. So it kind of kept me sane, and thankfully, we're back up. So it was definitely a crazy ride. It's going to be a crazy ride. I'm sure that this isn't going to be the last drop. So you just kind of learn. But to answer your question, man, it was a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah. I've personally, Jesse, I don't know how many times you've lived through those kinds of drops, but me personally, it's approaching double digits now. And like, since I'm the linchpin of all this, Jesse, like everyone's crypto involvement here in Louisville is me.
That's
right.
true.
So everybody's like, I'm just trying to like, look, I knew in my head, I'm like, there's not a single thing I could say to help them get through these emotions. Right. And there is one thing I could do. If I say something, they could get pissed. Right. So I was like, I just got to let them get through that emotion, because in crypto, that's like a yearly thing, man. Like it happened last year in March when Bitcoin went down to $3,600 and in March. And I was like, man, that hurts. That hurts a lot. Right. And like nobody knows this is happening or what I'm going through. And you're looking at your personal wealth just go on this roller coaster. You just keep it on the chin and you keep it moving. Because in the long term, when you zoom out on the charts, the trend is positive. And when, like you mentioned, some real world things that aren't changing, like last year, the US alone printed more money than in the previous 14 years that they've ever printed in like one season. So it's like, well, if the government's preparing for something, meanwhile, my grocery bill is doubling, then I got to have my money in some other kind of asset that's just, even if it's not 100% like inverse of the dollar, like at least there's enough evidence to show that it's going to go up over time at this point in time. So that's a good point. Jesse has some arguments, though. I know he does, against like crypto isn't the only place you can put your money when the government is getting excessive with their printing of money, which he's not wrong. But I'd argue to you, Jesse, why make that argument? That's what I want to know.
No, I don't think I would argue that. I would just be cautious in terms of knowing that the crypto winners are long. For instance, it depends on what your entrance dollar cost average amount is. If you go in lump sum or if you dollar cost average, like there are people who bought 60K was their first entrance price into crypto. And looking back, like what is Bitcoin at, say 40K? So they've lost a third. And so you really have to understand where you are macroscopically in the trend. Are you buying into the tail end of a bull cycle and is about to turn into a winter for like 3 years? And then you have to know that, and so that at least you're not playing with funds that you might need, right? Because it'll bleed essentially out for like 2-3 years where it's just nothing but lower lows and lower highs, and it's brutal.
That's when it gets tough, right?
I guess for me, just the way I think, and I know the way that Jeff kind of thinks, and just having a business mindset. Number one, I guess for people, for the audience, for everybody out there, you obviously can't put all of your eggs in one basket. So our portfolio is very diversified. We own a lot of real estate. We have 4 different profitable companies. We have money invested in the stock market. We have a little bit of cash on hand, and at the same time, now with the excess, here we are, putting money in crypto. So that definitely, just knowing that we have all these different avenues of income for us, puts things at ease. But at the same time, when the market goes down, that's a huge opportunity, right, for everyone, because you're buying at a discount. It's just nuts. It's like when the market goes down, people get scared. But is it no different than like when a TV goes on sale at Walmart? I mean, you rush to Walmart to buy that TV because it's on sale, right? You don't wait for the price to go up so then you can go buy that TV, right? You wait until there's a sale, when it's on clearance or whatever the case is, so you can get a better deal. It's the same thing with anything else, right? Like crypto or, real estate. It's like in real estate, it just mind boggles me when people, when the market is going up and it's a seller's market, why is everybody buying real estate at that time? Like, shouldn't you buy real estate when it's a buyer's market, right? And it's just like everybody's mindset is just all over the place, right? So when the market went down, we purchased more crypto, right? You purchased more Bitcoin, more Ethereum, more Avalanche, and it's going to go back up because, again, the fundamentals remain the same, right? The issues still persist. The solution is still crypto. So if it goes down, I mean, that's just an opportunity for everybody to get in at a great price and watch their investment grow.
Yeah. I don't quite understand the herd. I just call it the herd mentality. Like, people FOMO into things and out and in and out of things. It's very funny. Is like when crypto is not doing well in those bear markets, as Jesse said, and I just look like the crazy guy that has a podcast and is way too passionate about something random. No one hits me up. But when Bitcoin's at like 60,000, they're like, all right, man, should I buy right now? And I'm like, it was $3,000. I get it. I missed it. But should I buy right now? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, sure, if it's your money. And they're like, all right. I'm going to wait until it goes down. So then I'll hit up those same people. Now it was at 30-something K. I was like, hey, man, it's halfway down from when you hit me up. I think it's going to go down further. I'm just going to go ahead and wait this one out. I'm like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. But I guess we'll move on from price. Are there any questions about like the functionality? Like, a lot of people say, and before I say this, I kind of want to add like a little, I don't know, qualifier, is that like a lot of people say, I want to trust it, but I just don't see how it works. And then my same question to them is like, okay, well, how does the Fed work? Explain it to me. Exactly. In 4 sentences, explain to me the Federal Reserve. And if you can do that, then I'll stand by your argument that not understanding Bitcoin is a reason for us not to trust it. But I'll ask you guys both. Can you explain to me how the Federal Reserve works?
No, not at all.
No.
All right. I don't think I can either. Me and Jesse tried in an episode of, what was that? What the Headers? Like, we tried to pick apart the Fed. We found out it's not even like a government thing. It's actually for private banks that just basically issue money to all the banks. And we were like, okay, this is getting deep real fast. This is a podcast. I'm not trying to get on anybody's list. Let's just stop this research. But is there anything like behind the scenes of how Bitcoin works? Let's start with Bitcoin that you're like curious about, that you want to know how it works.
Yeah, it's funny because when I first heard about Bitcoin, I mean, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. In my ignorance, I thought it was an actual coin. Like, I'm like, where are these coins? Right? Like when I thought of Bitcoin and I thought that they were actual coins, and then I saw the logo, I immediately thought of like DuckTales, right? Scrooge McDuck. I kind of thought that it was a situation like that. But yeah, like, how does it work? What is Bitcoin? What is cryptocurrency? Right.
All right. Jesse, do you want to pull out the white paper? Do you want to dust it off? No. Okay. So where do we start? So in the white paper, white paper is like, there's a academic white paper, which is what academics use. When you're in academia, you use it to kind of like present an idea, right? And then there's like a business white paper that is, hey, this is my business idea, and this is how it breaks down. Do you want to invest in it? So the academic white paper starts out that Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer digital currency system, right? I believe that's the very first sentence. And really, it's designed to combat one thing called the double spend, right? It's this whole system designed to combat double spending, which right now our banks combat that, right? You, Henry, can't give $100 to Kevin and then go into your own personal ledger and just erase that like you never gave him $100 and keep that $100, right? You can't spend that $100 twice. Right now, the bank keeps that ledger, right? When you make a withdrawal, it puts it on the ledger, right? So you can't just take that $100 withdrawal and do it again, right? Because at one point in history, people were probably doing that. They were like, if it's just kept here, I'm gonna just go on ahead and give him $100 and just write that I never even spent that. I got infinity money, right? So right now we trust banks to hold on to this one central ledger that says that party A gave money to party B. So there's going to be money, a withdrawal from party A and a deposit to party B. And that's pretty much it. So what Bitcoin says, okay, is instead of there being one ledger, everybody who's a participant in this Bitcoin network gets a copy of the ledger, right? And this is Kevin shaking his head. Yeah, blockchain tech. That's pretty much it, right? And so if everybody, and I mean by everybody, I'm talking about these computers, have a copy of the ledger and they're communicating the truth of that ledger 24/7, then why do we need to have one entity be the single source of truth, a bank, when everyone's looking at the same truth all at the same time, right? If anything, it's more efficient. We pay and give all this money to banks to hold up that entity. Well, if we were to spread those fees across thousands of computers, this is where the big misnomer of Bitcoin actually came to reality in 2017. If we spread those fees throughout all these nodes, all these participants in the network, then we don't need a central entity. We can just trust the blockchain, right? So that's kind of like the grand idea. Jesse, what do you think? I hit the grand idea okay in less than 2 minutes?
Yeah, it's like a software program where it's like everybody has the same Excel document and everybody has the same column of cells, and as each block is added to the original first block, the Genesis block, that has the transactions of the Bitcoin that was minted and is being transferred from person, or not from person, but from what is it? How does it work? Is it account to account? It's not account based.
Key to a key.
Key to a key.
Bitcoin is, yeah.
Ethereum's account based. What was it?
Ethereum's account based. Bitcoin is not account based. It's UTXO based. Mm-hmm. So we're getting into Cadillac talk.
How do you break down you talking about UTXOs?
Well, it's like this. There's transaction outputs and transaction inputs. right? I believe UTXO is the unspent transaction outputs, right? So basically, Bitcoin calculates all of the money that you have, these transaction inputs and outputs, right? If you have an input with no correlated output, then that's money that you have, right? When you're sending somebody, you're actually sending them outputs. They call them unspent transaction outputs, right? So it's no different than withdrawal and deposit. It's kind of like the same analogy, right? So what Jesse was talking about, the Excel column, right? So to bring it to his analogy, where we're all looking at a shared Google spreadsheet, right? The thing about that is you set permissions, right? When you hit that share button in the top right and you send out emails to who can and who can't do what, in that it's as easy as clicking a button in the Google spreadsheet, right? But Bitcoin works on this thing called proof of work. And in order for you to get permission to add a cell to that column, you've got to prove that you did the work to add to that cell in a column, right? You got to prove you did the work to add a block to that chain of blocks, right? And
how do you break that down?
I'm about to try.
Okay.
So doing the work is, so let's reel to a computer. Have you ever heard of flops?
Like a floppy disk?
Well, not like a floppy disk, but that's a great guess, actually. It's like a floating operation point per second. That's
Okay.
like the measure of a computer. Is that one way of putting it, Jesse? Like, it's still the central measure of a computer. How many operations per second it can get done,
Okay.
right? Computers work on flops. He's like an electrical engineer, so I'm treading softly. So computers work on flops, right? Floating operation points per second.
At some point, we're just abstracting, like, enough that you guys can understand it.
Yeah, we're just peeling enough. And then so with Bitcoin, it works on these things called hashes, right? A hash per second. Hash is a cryptographic term, which is so what's a hash? A hash is this. Say I have a math problem, right? And let's just keep it easy with like a Caesar cipher. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3, right? Z would equal 26. And I say, okay, I'm going to give you this problem. And the problem is take the letter and add 3, and that's the real letter, right? So I could have some crazy scramble of letters, but as long as you know if I add 3, I get to the real letter, then you could decipher that code, right? Each time you attempted to decipher it is called a hash, right? So all these computers are hashing so many hashes per second. I do believe it's like it's like, what is it? 180. No, I want to say 120 million hashes per second that these Bitcoin computers are trying to guess. They're simply guessing, and a guess is a hash, right? They guess one time, boom, it's gone. They guess a second time, it's another guess. They're doing that 120
It depends on
million.
what you're running, right?
What do you mean? Oh, I'm talking just for Bitcoin. Are you talking about? I'm talking about all of the hash power.
Oh, okay.
All of
I
the
thought you were
hash
talking
power.
about one person with like
No.
their desktop PC. Okay.
Yeah, not one person. So they're all computing to be the first computer or group of computers to guess a number that's small enough to add transactions to the blockchain. That's it. That's literally
Probably
it.
want to talk about how basically it's the more hash rate that you contribute to this math problem of trying to solve the next hash, which is like the key that says I have confirmed the next block is this block, and then you send it out to be verified to basically everybody else tries to verify it on their own. So the hash rate that your computer generates is kind of in some way correlative to the probability that you have of mining that new block. And what that means is that you're kind of verifying that the hash that your computer has brute forced to fit the what is it? What is the algorithm?
You talking about SHA 256?
So SHA-256 is the hashing algorithm, but what is the actual thing that you're trying to solve? Like the actual larger math problem?
The difficulty? Are you talking about that?
So the difficulty is changes the probability that your PC as an individual can solve
Yeah.
the math problem. But I need to look at the white paper again.
Take a gander. But in a nutshell, right? When you make a transaction, it goes into this pool of everyone else who submitted a transaction, right? It goes into what's called a memory pool. The miners take those transactions and they add them into a block and they make them reality, right? And so the reason I want to mine is because if I'm the person that gets to decide that next block of reality, because I'm putting forth all my computation and I'm proving that my computer or group of computers has done the work to say, okay, these transactions are the ones that are going to be valid and confirmed, right? Then I get paid in brand new, hot off the presses Bitcoin, never even entered circulation before, right? And it doesn't take some very so-called wise group of individuals in Washington, D.C. to sign new Bitcoin into existence, right? I have to prove that I've done the work and I spent the electricity, right, and the computation to add Bitcoin into the system, right? So that's the reward. That's why people are spending all this money. People will spend millions of dollars buying mine equipment because if they do it right and they manage their miners, they'll get that money back in 2 years' time, right, of just keeping computers on. Now, there's a lot said in that keeping computers on, but that's it. Right. So that's kind of the a little bit of squeezing the juice of how the sausage is made, I guess you could say, is that there's all these computers competing to add transactions to the blockchain. Right. And what I was talking about is that difficulty changes every 2 weeks. So as more people compete, it gets harder to guess. Right. As less people compete, hey puppy, as less people compete, it gets easier to guess. So there's this organic system of, man, I can't compete anymore. I got to turn my electricity off, turn my computers off. Well, if it gets too difficult and more people start turning their computers off, well, guess what? Somebody who has a big pile of money who knows about Bitcoin is going to be like, now's my time to get in. I'm going to start mining right now. They go get their miners all lined up. They turn it on. Okay, difficulty slowly builds back up. They can no longer compete. It starts over and over and over again. What ends up happening is a system designed so that the hash rate slowly increases over time, so long as the incentive is there. And that incentive being, nonce. Is that the word you're looking for? That's what Alicia said.
Yeah, so that was like, but no, it's a double SHA-256 of the nonce, right?
Hold up, we just jumped into something. Let me jump back to where I was. So the system is gonna.
Yeah, I think you jumped like 3 times while you were talking to.
My bad. I jumped all over. So the difficulty adjusts, right? As more computers try to compete to add reality. Let's just say they're adding reality to the blockchain, right? And that's that. Now, what they're guessing, Jesse is right, it's called a nonce, right? It's a number that satisfies that hashing algorithm, right? And when they guess the right nonce, they win Bitcoin. Good on the miner, right? So that's a little bit of like how the sausage is squeezed. Now, when you distribute that across the globe, or sausage is made, when you distribute that across the globe, right, you can now see like over time that cost actually becomes lower than having huge banking functions, right? Not over like a span of 10 years, over a span of, we probably won't be here. We just won't. But over time, that cost on society, on humanity, is actually lower than having these, 25 huge banking entities that basically decide all things on the planet, right? And everybody could just use the blockchain. So that's the grandiose idea of a little bit behind the scenes. I hope now that to me, which I've tried to explain here in 15 minutes, would probably not even be able to do with currency systems that exist on the planet. So
one question I have is, I thought that there was a certain amount of Bitcoin. So it sounds to me like Bitcoin is being added to the current number of Bitcoin that's available. So one of the things that I thought was that because there was only a limited amount of cryptocurrency, that's what made it so valuable, or one of the things that made it so valuable. So what it sounds to me like you're saying is that you have people who are doing work behind the scenes for the cryptocurrency market, and they're actually getting paid in extra crypto that was not in circulation.
So there is a cap, right?
The
And
cap
it's actually
is 21 million. Yeah.
21 million. So there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin, right?
So
But
how many Bitcoin is in circulation right now?
Like
off the top of my head,
18 something.
I want to say
Or is it-
18.9, but it
Yeah.
might have crept to 19
Might
million.
have. But the to answer your question, Henry, is it diminishes. So the reason why there's this phrase, the Bitcoin halvings, is because at certain points the rate at which Bitcoin is produced by the people who validate blocks, the miners, their reward, the block reward that goes to them for finding the nonce that's associated with the next block, that basically says, hey, all these new transactions that have been batched in this block are valid, and then signals to everybody, check this nonce. That the rewards from doing that diminish over time, such that there's going to be a point where it tapers off until it's like basically nothing. You're never going to go beyond the 21 million supply. So you don't have to worry about ever going, Bitcoin itself ever going beyond 21 million coins.
Mhm.
Got
Yep.
it. And so right now, there's 18.9 in circulation.
18.7. I just took a look.
18.7. Got it. So when we hit that 21 mil, then what happens then? Like, let's
Good
say,
question.
So once everybody owns the 21 mil, then that's it. Somebody else can't come in and own any Bitcoin unless someone sells it to them.
That's a great question. So that's one thing, yes, unless someone sells it to them. Two, I'm going to give the exact number. Thank you, Alicia. That's one thing, yes. Two, they get paid in fees. So one thing you've probably heard is transaction fees, or for Ethereum, it's gas fees. The miners get paid fees. So not only do they get a little bit of that fresh Bitcoin, straight new fresh Bitcoin, they get a little bit of fees, right? All the transactions, when you put a transaction into that pool of transactions, you have to pay a fee to get it into a block, right? The theory, right, how the math works is that eventually, if Bitcoin, if there is, quote unquote, this isn't a word, but we made it one, hyper Bitcoinization, which is just a thing. If there is hyper Bitcoinization,
That's straight from Webster.
then the miners will be subsidized by those fees, because in today's US dollars, $500 just to get your transaction is a lot. But if the world is thinking in Bitcoin and we're thinking in sub-satoshis, which is like the eighth decimal place of one Bitcoin, right? If it costs you, I don't know, a tenth of a Satoshi to get your transaction in there, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal whatsoever. And if that tenth of a Satoshi multiplied by billions of people, right? All of a sudden you have enough fees for the entire world to live, the entire globe of miners to eat off of, right? They'll just perpetually mine, right? And secure this network, because if everyone's using Bitcoin, that implies everyone's paying a transaction fee, which implies the collection of, you get billions of pennies together. That's a lot of money, right? So that's the idea. So after that cap is hit, it's boom. Then the miners are subsidized by fees alone, right? So
in other words, even when the 21 million cap is hit, the miners are still incentivized to do the work because they're still getting paid in fees.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely. So, many moons ago, I know you have a Coinbase used to pay the miner fees for their clients, right? Until it got to a point where they were probably hemorrhaging money. They were like, look, if you send Bitcoin outside of a Coinbase wallet, you're paying the miner fee, right? And that's when it started to come to light. Where people were like, wait a second, you're trying to charge me $5 to send a $5 transaction. I'm not going to pay $10 for $5 bucket of chicken. That's not going to happen. I'm never going to do that. Right. So that's when people are like, well, wait a second. I thought Bitcoin was supposed to be free. And that's when people were like, yeah, that's when the arguments kind of get iffy because it's like, oh, it's too successful too fast. Right. If there's not that many people using it, that's the funny thing. I tell all these other blockchains, Kevin, that you mentioned at the beginning of the show, right? They all tout how highly functional they are, right? But they don't tout the fact that, like, okay, of course a bus is going to be super good at moving one person. It's this big ass engine, this big vehicle. We get one person on there, it's going to be moving pretty quick, right? But if you have a 200 seat bus and you try to put 400 people on that bus, all of a sudden what's going to happen? Bearings are going to wear, suspension is going to shoot, brakes are going to get worn down quick. It's not going to work so well anymore, right? So all these blockchains, and this is maybe a shot across the bow at the whole industry. All these other blockchains that claim that you're so functional, you're not, right? Nobody's using your shit. Everyone's using Bitcoin and everyone's using Ethereum, right? Not a lot of people are using these other ones. Well, there's some growth in Avalanche.
We have to remember Ethereum came out when Ethereum came out. Like, I remember I was trading Ethereum in 2017, and I remember the flash crash down to like $5 from like 300 something dollars.
Oof.
So they, like, if you think about things in terms of like time scales, where we're at, if this is somewhat similar to the dot-com boom era, there are going to be winners and there are going to be losers, and there's going to be a transitionary period from where the winners get superseded by other chains who basically have more utility, have more promising tech. And I think you're always going to see the varying accelerations of value, right? So if you stick your money right now from, a first world country into a third world country real estate market, you're probably going to get more bang for your buck in terms of long-term value and risk associated with that kind of investment. So in that same sense, like, there is a point at which the value of Bitcoin can only go so much further. Its acceleration is effectively slowing down, so that you may want to look at alternatives in order to keep that initial acceleration high of your money.
So with that, I have a question. What are both Jesse and Dee, what are your top 5 cryptocurrencies to invest in right now?
Hashtag no investment advice. We got to say that. So
do your own research, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm asking you guys, what would you do? Not what do you suggest someone else does, right?
Okay. That's a good question. That's a good point. And I have a rebuke to, definitely. Head first into Doge, baby. Go to town.
Oh, God. Don't do that. No. That is the worst.
What I would say to not refute, but just add a rebuttal to Jesse is that the only difference between this tech and the .com phase is that, like, this has the added flavor of actually being money too. Like, I couldn't trade slices of pets.com, right, to a person, right? Like, it wasn't easy. Maybe they were a public company, but it wasn't easy to do. This makes things a little bit different. When you put money attached to the tech, it changes things just a little bit. And I don't think we're going to find out what happens when we have them. Now,
there's too many factors at play to be able to be like, I know for sure, right? And so really, it's just a matter of dollar cost averaging, spray and pray. And if you really want to go ballsy, lump sum amounts during what you hope is not a peak bull market, right?
Yeah. That's one of my favorite ones, Alicia, because that's what he should have said in the movie. Anyways, so top 5, the first 2 slots, Bitcoin and Ethereum, those are just givens. I think they have a human network effect that's like, for me, is beyond tech, right? People don't really know that Bitcoin's transaction fees make it problematic until they solve that problem, but they still don't care. They're still buying that shit like it's going out of style, right? The same thing with Ethereum. That's about to hit Ethereum as well. So Bitcoin, Ethereum, Avalanche is very next to me. Avalanche to me is the most unique project in this space. One, it's not a copy of other projects. It's innovative. It actually uses a system of blockchains, which many moons ago when we used to do drunk episodes before Jesse was a part of the show, I said, I think the world's going to run on a web of blockchains. I was drunk, but you know, whatever. Sometimes your best thoughts are when you've had a bottle of wine. Who gives a shit, right? But I thought like one blockchain will talk to another, which will talk to another, which will talk to another, and provide this full reality. Avalanche has gotten that right, and Avalanche has gotten it right in a way when it comes to the mining part. There's like barely any computers. My own computer, the one I'm on, I could literally be mining Avalanche and still recording this podcast at the same time.
But you're not
Right.
really mining in the sense of the original the original meaning of mining in the proof of work
Exactly.
sense.
It
So
it doesn't do proof of work.
it needs to be caveated heavily.
It does. I have to caveat that at a big asterisk. Alicia, do I have a big asterisk?
And
You need to
also
put it up
something
there.
that you need to know is that Avalanche is only unique in its consensus mechanism, not in the fact that it uses multiple chains.
Yes. Say what, Jesse?
That's so. Well, yeah, you have to caveat again what you said, that Avalanche is the most unique in that it's actually only unique from its consensus mechanism, right? It's actually not unique in the idea that it's using multiple chains, because there are other projects that are doing the same thing. So in my mind, there's this, in fact, that's what the roundtable today was supposed to be about after the interview, potentially with Corey, is a continuation of kind of our debate. And it's not really a debate. It's kind of like an ongoing discussion, because we don't know what is going to be the conclusion of this. What does permissionless mean? Right. So what we're seeing is Avalanche and other things that are similar to it in the fact in the way that there are multiple chains. They're patented. So what that means is like Bitcoin and Ethereum are not patented technologies. Like you can fork Ethereum and you can fork Bitcoin and spin up your own network if you wanted to. That's what Litecoin is. That's what Dogecoin is. But Avalanche is patented. A lot there, another project that I'm interested, Algorand, is also patented. Now, what does that actually mean? And so in my mind, I would like to have a conversation with other people in the space and ask them, do you guys think that there are going to be these chains that are more like Apple stores in the way that they have the ultimate power over who gets to run on their network? And by no,
they won't. Sorry, I didn't mean. I shut that down hard, and I do
no. But listen, because they don't have control over the subnets in Avalanche, but you still have governance control over the Avalanche token through what chain is it? I forget. On Avalanche,
X chain.
Is it X chain that all validators for subnets have to basically? Yes. Okay, yeah. And so that is like a way in which the development group could potentially leverage like control mechanisms on people. Like, what if I don't want to pay, like I don't want to participate in, I guess you have no choice to participate in validating X-chain stuff. You know what I mean? I just want to run my own subnet that's like isolated from the entire ecosystem. You can't.
So Jesse's Avalanche is not going to be in his top 5, I don't think. So
I would spray and pray it, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would spray and pray it.
Avalanche is number 3 for me. Number 4 is probably Handshake. Handshake as actually use case. Like a lot of these blockchains, Kevin, tout use cases and functionality and are doing none of those things. Handshake has the one functionality and use case that it says it can do, and it does it very well. HNS. And then the fifth spot is a toss up between Siacoin and Status. Both straight up, no reasoning at all, straight human emotion for my fifth coin. My best friend works for Status and builds on that. And then Siacoin is a distributed. I think that if we hope to ever have a distributed computer, a global computer, we got to have a global storage. I think there's going to be more than one storage solution, just as like there's more than one. I can go out and get a Western Digital hard drive, a Samsung hard drive. What are the other hard drives out there?
But
Jesse?
you know what? Something that you're not considering is the fact that Siacoin or Siacoin and Filecoin, they all have the same monthly subscription model of service, whereas there are coins like, I forget what the other one I was talking about before, where it's buy it once, have the space for forever. So it just depends, right? We don't know which model is going to be more popular. So again, if that's what the play that you're going for, decentralized space, spray and pray.
So those are my five.
Jess?
Honestly, I'm pulled. I'm out completely. Yeah.
What do you mean?
I'm out of crypto entirely.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
You got out like a month ago, right? And then you were like,
and then I went in for the up again, and then I pulled out on the way down again. So, I honestly, I was like full board Algorand, because if you look at the team behind it, I mean, it's the dude who invented like half of the tech that the whole space is using.
You talking about Dan Larimer?
No, I'm talking about Silvio Macaulay.
Okay, if you're talking about Dan Larimer, then I'd be even more happy about Algorand.
No, they're so the whole MIT. There's a whole team at MIT that's working with the Boston Fed to deliver the first U.S. digital stablecoin. That's by the Fed.
That's on Algorand.
That's the same team, or like their advisor is one of the advisors for that team is Silvio Macaulay. So there's a lot of Gensler, right? Is an ex MIT staff. There's so many connections from MIT that like Algorand seems like a no-brainer. Now the only thing that's like kind of iffy with me is that whole debate about what is permissionless and what does that look like. And I just want to know. I want to hammer that out and know what is in the cards for these, because they're supposed to be decentralized, but they're centralized for all intents and purposes right now. At least Algorand is. Avalanche, there's like 1,000 unique nodes. So you really want to kind of take a look at like what's the neighborhood look like? It's like buying a home in a community. You want to know what the ecosystem looks like. What are the plans for development in the area? Is it going to be a decent area to live in? It's kind of like that.
But virtual.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't hold it. And there's no Duck McScrooge coins. But it's kind of like that. So I mean, that would be my top 5. I wish I were like Elon Musk, and when I release this podcast, it affects the whole market, right? Like everything just shoots up, and I could be like, cool, I'm done. But hashtag not investment advice. So Jesse's top 5 are none, because Jesse is out sitting on the sidelines. He's 100% cash position right now. So
I'm sure when Jesse was in, he did very, very well, which is why he pulled out.
What's interesting, Henry?
What I heard Jesse say earlier was that he was trading Ethereum when it was $5.
Dude, I had so much Ethereum that I sold last year before this run up to thousands. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
What was that?
I had millions and millions of dollars worth of Ethereum before. Yeah.
2018.
Before no, last year. Before anyway. It's just
it was time to get up.
Yeah. I ate the May dip. I sold into that. I was like, I can't. So my experience with crypto has been like
Emotional.
yeah.
Great.
So like
I can only
when I was an engineer, when I freshly graduated, I worked at a job and I realized that holy crap, engineers get paid say 60K plus or minus. And you guys you work a shit ton. And so like getting into blockchain was an extension of me understanding how digital assets work in general, just from black market in video games. And I saw that opportunity. It's like, okay, this makes sense. And so like I put in say like $20,000, and I saw that right all the way up to $200,000 and all the way back down basically. And so my mentality, and I talked to Dee about this, is like, I don't want to be caught with my pants down again, because, you know, everybody's waiting for Bitcoin to get to 100K, right? Or beyond. And it's like, sometimes it's like just better to consolidate, especially during a bull run. There's no better time to sell.
Right.
But, you know, if this is your first cycle, then, you know, the time in the market really beats anything.
Mm-hmm.
And just continually buying at discounted prices over a long period of time.
Yeah. What he said was time in the market, not
Mm-hmm.
timing the market.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's that saying, right? One in the hand is worth more than two in the bush.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's what it was. It was just your time to get out. So, I mean, I fully understand that. I totally get it. But, you know, I just wanted to make clear to everybody listening that Jesse's out, not because Jesse doesn't believe in it. He did his thing, you know. Jesse did his thing. He made it.
Jesse didn't make enough money, because there's not enough money in the world, right? For anybody who wants to make a lot of money, right?
I mean, I don't know. I can think of a number that would be enough.
Interesting.
Jesse said, "I want all the money."
I think I just realized that like what I want is like, I need money. Everybody needs money, but the way that I want my money to grow is going to be from what I kind of build out myself, because it'll be something that I can like wholeheartedly believe in. You know what I mean? And I think that I don't want to get caught up in like investing in other people's dreams too much, because like if I lose money or if I make money on somebody else, it just doesn't feel the same as if I'm making it with my own, you know, my own idea, my own everything, right?
Fuck that, Jesse. I mean, it all spends the same.
No,
It's
you're
true.
right, Jesse.
It's true.
You're right.
It spends the same.
But I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? Like if I make $10 off of my idea, or if I make $10 off of Kevin's idea, still spends exactly the same, right?
I think philosophically, I'm in the process of a career change over the past 3 years, from engineering into medicine.
Okay.
And so my philosophy on money is kind of like pivoted in terms of like, there are certain investments that, yeah, you can ride, and it's kind of like you can see them, like you're going to make money. But it's like, do you want that? I don't know.
I know what you're talking about.
It's a lot deeper for you.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I think it's a lot more than that. Yeah.
I respect it. I think that's an opinion of someone who, you know, and I could be wrong, but I guess that's an opinion of someone who has done okay and can have that opinion, right? Like someone who isn't well off, someone who is only making $60K a year plus or minus and living paycheck to paycheck, isn't thinking in terms of, man, I don't want to make $10 off of his idea, right? That person is thinking, okay, how the hell do I make $10, whether it's his idea or my idea? But I totally understand what you're saying, because I say to my wife, and I say all the time, you know, not all money is good money, right?
That's what I believe in. Not all money is good money, and I would rather make it the good money on my own, or not, you know, on my own, but you know,
on something that you're passionate about, right?
Sure.
on something that it's yours. You can put your name on it. This is me. I built this. I created this. So I get it. I totally get it.
Mhm.
I think in terms like that. Sometimes, for example, we do okay. We make very good money at our business at Trademark, and I've told Kevin this, but is the money that we make worth the stress, the sleepless nights, the time that you invest in it, in figuring things out, solving problems, the time that you're investing in people so that they can be at their full capacity, right? Versus so all those things yield results. All those things make money at the end of the day. And though you have that value, was it worth the journey to get it?
I would just have to ask you this question, Henry. Do you love what you do?
No, I don't. Not at all. And when I started this company, it wasn't because I loved selling countertops to rich people, right? It wasn't, holy shit, I'm so excited to sell this granite countertop for this person's island, right? So it wasn't. I had to train myself and think to myself that I was doing actually more than that. So when someone asks me, what is it that you do? My answer is a lot different than what a normal person in this industry would say, right? So what I do for a living is I help bring someone's vision to life. I help turn a structure into a home. I create spaces where you're going to teach your son how to shave, and where mom is going to help her daughter get ready for the dance. I help create a space where you're going to create incredible memories with your loved ones and share meals with your family. That's what I do. And I do that by providing countertops, right? So I've had to coach myself and train myself, and it helps me to get up in the morning, and it helps me to understand that I'm doing something a lot more meaningful than just selling countertops, right? And then when I do make the money, it feels so much more satisfying,
Mm-hmm.
because I do feel like I'm doing something much more important, right?
So you touched on something like I just want to kind of highlight this. I believe that whatever you do, if you don't like it, or if you do like it, it has a lot to do with how you frame things mentally, right?
Yeah, sure.
You can it's doing something longer term that you don't necessarily like doing is more digestible if you find meaning in what you're doing, right?
Right.
I think the answer to that question for me in engineering and in just trading numbers on a screen is not meaningful. And there's no way for me to trick myself into thinking it's meaningful.
Understood. I get
Yeah.
it. I come from a place where it was really difficult. I mean, I come from the South Bronx in New York City. I'm the first one in my family born in the United States of America. My wife was smuggled into this country from Belize, from over the Mexican border, in the trunk of her uncle's car when she was 2 years old. When I went to go see the house that my wife was born in, I mean, talk about the most beat up, rundown wooden shack where you stretched your arms out and you can touch both outside walls. It was nuts. It was absolutely bananas. So when we started our journey, we didn't have the luxury to think the way that we're thinking right now. We didn't have the luxury to say that, you know what, I hate countertops, I'm not going to do it, right? We didn't have the luxury to say, to make comments like that, or to even be in the frame of mind to think that way. It was more survival mode.
Mhm.
What can I do right now to feed my family and to feed myself? What can I do at this moment? But then what happens is that you come into this transition. There's this transitional period where you reach a level of success that now you don't want for anything. You know that things are going to be okay. You have money set aside. You have a home, and things are looking up. So then you really, in this transitional period, you really start to question: do I want to do this for the rest of my life? Is this meaningful? Like, am I making a difference? Are there other things that I would rather be doing? So I think that we are incredibly privileged to be able to be in the space where we could even think this way.
I agree.
Where we can make the decision. We can literally sit back and make the decision on what we want to do tomorrow, right? And that's incredible. That's an incredible position to be in, where most of the planet isn't in a position like that, right? To even be able to, most people are trying to think how they're going to make it to the next day. So to be in a place where you can think, I don't even want to do this anymore, and I'm not going to, right? So you're right. In a way, during that transition period, what happened with me was that I almost gave it up several times. And what happened with me was that when I looked around at my team, when I looked at my business partner, right, we have 70 families that we feed on a weekly basis, right? That's our team is 70 people strong, just about across 4 different companies. And when I looked at them and I realized they don't have the luxury that I have to make the decision that I can make, I need to stick this out. So in sticking it out, what that meant for me was, okay, I got to reframe this. I got to rethink about this. I got to do things different. I got to innovate. I got to, just create experiences for my clients to make this more meaningful for myself. It can't just be we install countertops. It just can't be that, right? So that's kind of what happened. So what I'm trying to say, I guess, is I totally understand what you're saying, Jesse. Totally understand. I get it. I know where you're at.
Yeah, Jesse, you see why I came out to Louisville now? You see why I enjoy my work. So I guess it was kind of an on-ramping, kind of an interview. It's bounced around. I hope that, and Kevin, you didn't ask me any questions, man. You seem like you were just soaking it up.
Man, I have tons of questions, though. I honestly do. I would love to know what y'all think about NFTs. I would love to know what you think about like Decentraland and Atari building a fucking digital casino. And
shit, then we got time.
We
all
got
right, so
all right. Real estate development. Like, man, fuck.
So
there's so much.
There's a lot, man. But that's the thing about crypto. So you guys listening who just are getting into this, I know there's about 3,000 of you every week that visit us, and a small percentage of you stay. But the larger percentage of you that are going to go away with curiosity. Now, NFTs, I love. We're just scratching the surface, right? All this crazy stuff. I honestly believe all this crazy stuff with people selling a piece of digital art that you cannot hold is just. I honestly think it's people washing their gains. The people that have made billions and billions and billions of dollars in crypto, they're like, hey, why not just spend $1 billion on digital art? And then maybe, 5 years down the road, when the long-term capital gains taxes change, I'll sell that art. And maybe I hit big, maybe I didn't. Honestly, it doesn't make any sense to me why someone's going to pay $10,000 for a smiley face that I hand drew and then took a picture of and then loaded it on a blockchain. It just doesn't make sense. But NFTs are very powerful when it comes to digital uniqueness and what it can do to give. Now, here's the thing that I will say, Kevin, is that an NFT has to have a real life. It has to have a third party system to make it real. So about a month and a half back, we interviewed this gentleman from a company called Ethereum. Vinay Gupta. This guy is rocket scientist level genius, and the court system is what helps NFTs be powerful, right? So as long as you could say, I am trading actual ownership of this thing, I'm putting it in this NFT and giving it to someone else, then yeah, there's a system in place to help defend disputes when it comes to ownership, right? As long as you can present the private key that says you have the wallet that owns the digital thing, then you technically own the thing, right?
So the trick there is that you can't do it in a decentralized fashion. Like the whole goal of assigning a physical item to an NFT and kind of saying that like I think the gold bar was an example he was using, right? He said that gold bars have like a serial number on the bottom to kind of show that they're not fake, basically, right? And so that NFT, like, what's to stop? Like, what's the recourse if somebody steals your gold ingot that's assigned to that NFT? I mean, what are you going to do? Like, give me it back? I have the NFT. There's no, there's no repercussions behind if they do that. And so the cool thing that they did is like what Dee was saying is they finagled laws, I guess, that help them, that basically give the court system a way to arbitrate NFT to physical good settlement. And so you're going to have fusion of, decentralized stuff with essentially the centralized judicial model that we have. And so, yeah.
They applied contract laws to NFTs.
Yeah.
Is basically what they've done with Ethereum, which is also a cryptocurrency, which I don't know the price of, but great team behind Ethereum as well. Now, when it comes to Decentraland, which is just this crazy virtual, you can buy virtual land and you can sell that virtual land, and some of it goes for like $250K in real dollars. Yeah, I know you're shaking your head, Henry, because to me it doesn't make any sense.
Oh, you haven't seen that, Henry?
It doesn't make any sense, but
that's why
it really doesn't make any sense.
This space doesn't make sense the deeper you go, Henry, and it's crazy.
It doesn't make sense at all. Like, why would
it didn't make sense when New York City was fucking, that real estate was popping off at values that people couldn't understand at the time. That's kind of how I look at this shit. Like, it seems crazy because it's not the fucking norm. $1 million homes seem crazy when everyone's home costs $60,000, right? And so, to me, I think you're gonna see like businesses for real building offices over there in those spaces and like holding meetings for their teams and shit.
But I don't understand. These aren't. We're not talking about physical.
No.
No, we're talking about digital, completely 100%.
So like if you go to
land,
if you go to a website called, I think, like Decentraland, was it like, I forget what the specific URL is to jump directly into seeing all that's been built in that specific ecosystem, but you can basically in your browser punch in the website, and then you're walking around essentially this virtual area that people have created, and Mana for Decentraland is the underlying token that's used to purchase these parcels of land, and depending on proximity to the central areas, right, you're going to be paying a higher premium on
like on
the parcel.
Yeah.
It's like
wait.
So Henry, like this is why I'm like some of this stuff is just kind of scummy, and I'm just like, I don't know about this.
It's a Grand Theft Auto, Henry,
It's
except
great.
you can buy
You're talking about like a virtual world.
Yes.
Yeah.
And people are like
paying real money to own land in this virtual world.
How much did those shoes sell for?
Like Ready Player One type shit.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Except with we don't have VR that's like awesome yet.
Right. So we're prepared. They're preparing for that world.
Yeah.
And the thing is that like I thought it was stupid too, Henry, but then I played virtual Angry Birds on an Oculus Rift like a month ago. That shit is so real. I almost busted my ass in somebody's kitchen. Like I was like, I am really in this world.
You have to no.
So my nephew JT, we bought him an Oculus, and I went into my garage and I set up the perimeter, and I'm like literally walking around in a whole nother world.
Yeah.
Is this what we're talking about? Like, are we talking about?
You know, Second Life, the video game, in 2007 or 2006.
No.
So there's a video game called Second Life, and basically, Kevin knows maybe.
I know
Yeah.
it 'cause it's from The Office. Dwight
Oh,
Yeah. There was an
Yeah,
episode
okay.
on The Office about it.
Basically, it's a video game, right? And you can buy virtual assets in the same way that people are doing it with blockchain tech. There was a video game where you purchase a car, you purchase a home, and it is like 1-to-1 how much you would pay for a real life home and a real life car, and it's just like, holy shit! Like there's a market for that.
That
And
stuff
so-
really exists.
Yeah, and so
And-
this Decentraland, and there's all other spin-offs are that same concept in blockchain.
Yeah. And the beauty of the
Just remember the graphics are ass. Sorry, I just wanted to. It's ass.
they're ass now, but
So we're saying that they're building a virtual world, and NFTs are the assets that you can purchase to put in your virtual world.
so
Or on
yes,
your
that's
avatar.
You can do that. Yeah,
that's the long-term play, is that since these are protocols and this is programmable money or assets, if you have the Decentraland protocols tied into your application, then you could take your NFTs and just put it in this virtual world. You could buy an NFT from this random thing, but if the application that you're using uses the same protocols as Decentraland, you can go into Decentraland and then have your thing.
So I can buy a picture of a Picasso, and I can put it inside of my virtual house and hang
Yes.
it.
Bet.
Yes.
Go buy your virtual couch to go next to your
And
Jordan.
then I'll tell
NFT
virtual
sneaker.
Kevin, come on by and let's come chill at the crib. That don't even make sense, guys. That's crazy.
It doesn't make sense. Go ahead, Kevin. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say it's happening. It doesn't even have to make sense yet for everybody, but like it's just going forward and going to happen, and people are just gonna have to catch up with it, I think.
Like yeah, so it's kind of like Ready Player One, and yes, it's happening. It's not like it's being built, like it's there. People are doing it already.
Yeah.
And it's just
Mhm.
for me, it's something that I know I don't understand, but I don't need to understand it. Like the same way I have a friend whose kid who arguably made just a little less money than I made last year making a virtual Roblox game. Like he took this game called Roblox. This kid's like 14 years old. He took this game called Roblox, made his own version of it, like a map editor, and then sold it for a shit ton of money. And I'm like, there's things I just don't understand. I'm at that point, and I don't need to understand it, but I do know that it's real and it has value to a lot of people, obviously. And so like Decentraland is that. I'm pretty sure we have our own. We have a Bitcoin podcast corner in Decentraland that me and Corey bought, like, and forgot, and it's just there. And hopefully we come back to it one day and we're like, hey, anybody want this patch of virtual land we got in the metropolitan area of, so it's crypto's wild, man. And that's what Jesse said is like, the deeper you dig, the more wild it gets. And the probability of you finding a scam increases quick, right? And that's what I say to all of the new listeners while we wrap this up, is take your time. I know crypto seems like it moves fast as hell, but quite honestly, I've been in it since 2012, and it's been very slow and emotional the whole time, right? You have time to learn and time to understand it, and take the time to learn, because if you don't, you're not going to be able to sniff out something kind of scummy when you see it. And right now, when we're on this cusp of mass adoption, before regulation comes through and starts guiding people on how to behave and interact with this stuff, you're going to hit a lot of scams. There's going to be a lot of Nigerian princes hitting you up for your crypto. Like, that's just the way it goes. So
That's nuts.
I would love to keep going. We have to actually record an episode, so we gotta shut the interview portion down. but I don't know. I'm
It was great. I really appreciate it, guys.
good. I hope that you guys left this conversation knowing a little bit more about crypto than you did before you entered the conversation, and that's the aim. So
I think I've learned a little bit more, but I have an infinite number of more questions now. But no, it's been fantastic. I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you for having us. Really appreciate it. Thank you for answering our questions. And, it's been dope. It's been real dope.
Great.
Yeah, I second that. This has been really fun, entertaining, and I definitely learned a lot while I was here. So thank you for sharing the knowledge and giving us the space for it.
no doubt. And because I know you guys are on the seat of your pants, 18,713,277 Bitcoin in circulation. All right.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening.